Hello, everybody. This is Rabbi Wordy from Crown Heights Young Entrepreneur, more popularly known as CHYE. I'm here today to introduce you to a special class. Here at CHYE, we've been focused on inspiring and supporting new business growth here in this neighborhood. And recently, I had a conversation with a young person from this neighborhood, and he was saying to me, you know, it's so important to teach people about financial literacy. There's so many young people starting off their lives, and they need to know the best practices in order to set themselves up right for the future. And I said, you know, that's an awesome idea, but really it hasn't been a core focus of CHYE. That's why we haven't taken it on. So he turned around to me and he said, Rabbi Wordy, I will sponsor such a class because I think this is so important and it must be known. The young people have to know how to do this. They have to know how to save. They have to know how to manage their money. They have to know how to manage their credit. I said, you know something? I can't turn down such an offer. And so I sat down and I started to think, who would be the best teacher to give this class? And I couldn't think of a better person than Asher and Dovid Lieblich. Asher is a well-known accountant and financial advisor here in the neighborhood. He's been doing this for many, many years. And not only that, he is passionate about this, as it's his personal mission. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Asher.
Thank you, Rabbi Wordy, for your kind introduction. My name is Asher Lieblich. I'm a certified public accountant, a certified financial planner, and the author of the book, The Gift of Wealth. And my job is to help people make smart choices with their money. This presentation is about the foundation of financial planning. It is directed mainly for young people and families, but I believe anybody, regardless of their age, will benefit. We will cover the following topics: budgeting, credit cards, and the importance of your credit score, planning for your future financial needs, and life insurance. Joining me is my son, Dovid Lieblich, who is a financial planner in my office. He has a young family, recently purchased a home, and will share his experiences with you. In my experience, there are generally 5 ways to achieve wealth. You can earn it, you can win it, you can be born into it, you can marry it, or you can steal it. The last 2 are not recommended. We'll concentrate on the first because it's the only one that you can control. We're blessed to live in a country that offers unparalleled opportunities for financial success. There are many issues involved with financial planning, but I believe that the most important one is your decision to succeed. It's your choice. About 15 years ago, I had a client who worked as a clerk in a store on Kingston Avenue in Brooklyn. At the time, he was earning about $29,000. Prior to that, he worked in other places in similar jobs. When he passed away in 2001, his investment portfolio of stocks was worth $2,591,884. So right off the bat, it's important to dispel you from the notion that you must be rich or have a very successful career to accumulate wealth. In financial planning, the most important part, as the name implies, is the plan. And the plan could be simple, but it's generally not easy. Let me explain. You walk into any large bookstore and you'll notice that the 2 largest sections are usually dieting and finance. But what is dieting? At its core, it is simply a choice between broccoli and chocolate cake. We know that broccoli or vegetables are good for you, and chocolate cake, not so good. But when faced with a choice at a party, our mind tells us we should have the broccoli, but we reach for the cake and suffer the consequences. As I said, simple but not easy. And successful financial planning at its core is a choice between spending and saving. That is, spending less than you make. But often life gets in the way. You must buy a special outfit, go on a vacation, and so on. And if you can't afford it, you charge it. There's a best-selling book called The Millionaire Next Door. The authors spent 20 years interviewing people who had a net worth of over $1 million and identified 7 common traits that show up again and again among those who accumulated wealth. Most of the truly wealthy in this country don't live in Beverly Hills or on Park Avenue. They may live next door to you. Most millionaires are people you'd never suspect that they're such because they don't live flashy lives in big houses with high-status toys. If you make $200,000 a year, but spend $220,000, you're in trouble. But if you make $75,000 a year and live on $70,000, investing the rest, you'll be in good shape. To join this club, you have to follow 7 simple rules. The first rule, always live below your means. Another rule is that they believe that financial independence is more important than showing off their wealth. It requires sacrifice, discipline, hard work, qualities lacking in many in today's earn and spend culture. A book reviewer wrote, "The implications of the book The Millionaire Next Door is that nearly anybody with a steady job can amass a tidy fortune." Yes, another rule is that you must have a job or be in business. I can attest that the individual I mentioned earlier fits the profile described in the book. If you saw him on the street or working in the store serving you, you'd never imagine that he was worth over $2.5 million. He and his wife dressed simply, drove a mid-priced car, and did not flaunt their money. They put their children in yeshiva, made nice weddings for them, and were very charitable. But their greatest reward was the financial independence they achieved. He worked because he enjoyed it, not because he had to. So how did he do it? He smiled when I asked him. He told me that him and his wife were always savers and invested in savings, and it just kept growing. Sometimes they went through difficult times, but were always thrifty and savers. He said if he did it, anyone can do it. It is much easier when you develop a good habits when you're young and time is on your side. For example, if you're 25 years old, saving $5,500 a year and earning 6% a year, you'll have close to $1 million at age 65. With a return of 8% a year, you only need to save $3,300 a year to get to $1 million. But if you were able to save and invest $5,500 a year and earn 8%, you'd have over $1.5 million at age 65. And if it's in a Roth IRA, it will be tax-free. We'll present some ideas to help you achieve your financial success. I also realize that some families are struggling financially, and making ends meet is a challenge. There are high costs of rent, tuitions, medical insurance, and other expenses, and the stagnation of wage increases. It may be difficult for you to implement the concept discussed in this presentation. However, I hope that the ideas presented will resonate with you, and when your financial position improves, you'll be able to implement them.
The first step is to know your expenses. Categorize them and create a plan on how to spend your money. This spending plan is called a budget. There are generally 3 types of spending: necessities, wants, and luxuries. Creating this spending plan allows you to decide in advance whether you'll have enough money to do everything you need or want to do. If you don't have enough money to do everything you would like to do, use your budgeting plan to prioritize your spending and focus your money on the things that are most important to you. Setting a budget should not be difficult. The first step is to write down your necessities or fixed expenses. These are the expenses that you must pay every month. For example, rent, electricity, your telephone bill, insurance, and tuition. Once the fixed expenses are covered, any extra money can be used for other spending, like your wants or luxuries. Throughout the years, I've been going through various budgeting systems and tools. I created a simple and effective system that has worked for me and for many of my clients. The way it works is you set up 2 checking accounts, a regular account and a fixed account. You add up your monthly fixed expenses, and when you get paid, it goes into your regular account. You then move the fixed portion into the fixed account. Whatever is left in your regular account is your budget for food and clothing. You should try to pay your fixed bills directly from your fixed account, either by ACH or by debit card, to save from confusion. I have found the system to work great for many of my clients who have been struggling with budgeting. It's simple and it's easy to follow.
You may have noticed that Dovid left out food and clothing from their necessities. Of course, those are necessary, but perhaps we should classify them as wants. While rent, utility, and insurance expenses are generally set, you have discretion on how much you spend on food and clothing. For example, when my children were young and drank expensive orange juice like water, my wife started mixing it with water and cut that expense in half. They complained in the beginning, but got used to it, and now do the same thing in their homes. Whatever budgeting system you choose to use, it's important to know your spending habits. As a CPA, I have many business clients, and the most successful ones are those who maintain good books and records. They can monitor the income, expenses, and cash flow and quickly detect and react to any irregularities. A client of mine who owned a restaurant kept very close tabs on the food cost and noticed that for a few weeks they increased compared to other comparable weeks. In investigating the matter, he found that a newly hired employee in charge of unloading the food from the truck colluded with the driver to divert some boxes of food. A household is like a small business. There's income from various sources, expenses, and some fixed, some variable, and you must keep track of your cash flow. I recommend getting a program called Quicken to help you keep track of your income and expenses. It is an inexpensive and simple to use program. You can automatically download your credit card activities, banking transactions, and enter your cash expenses into Quicken. A client called me recently and told me that she was shocked to look at the summary reports from Quicken and see how much money was spent during the year on nonsense, as she called them. Almost $3,000 was spent on items that she doesn't recall why she bought them and where they are now. And other spending that in hindsight was a waste of money. It was an eye-opener for her. The data should be entered at least monthly, and at least every 3 months you should compare the summaries to the previous 3 months and even to a comparable period in the previous year. A benefit is that at the end of the year, you'll be better prepared with the income tax preparation and may discover some deductions that can result in tax savings. Another advantage of periodically reviewing your expenses is that in this digital age, many people stopped writing checks and have the expenses paid automatically, either through a credit card or bank withdrawals, without reviewing the bills, such as telephone, utilities, and other expenses. Sometimes we may subscribe to a service, pay by credit card, and check a box to automatically review the service. You may be paying for some services that you stopped using. There are two types of debt, good debt and bad debt. Good debt may be a mortgage on your home, a business loan, or even possibly a student loan, depending on your chosen career. I generally put credit card debt in the bad category. Credit cards should be used to alleviate the need to carry cash and purchase items online, but they should not be a source of spending unnecessarily. That is, if you can afford to buy with cash that you have, but it's more convenient to buy with a credit card, that's fine. But make sure you pay your debt every month. Interest rates on credit cards are extremely high, and building a large credit card debt is a sure way to derail you from financial success. A positive and important responsible use of credit cards can also be used to build your credit score.
Building up your credit score is extremely important. Your credit score will come into play in several aspects of your life. For example, when you lease a car, when you purchase your home, and even when you want to rent an apartment. Your credit score is the best indicator for companies to see if you're a responsible person financially. The best way to build up your credit score is to open up either a free bank card or a store credit card that you shop in a lot. These cards usually don't require a high credit score to get accepted, and are great ways to build up what's called your FICO score. Your FICO score is an indication of how risky it would be to lend you money. If you have a high FICO score, that indicates that you can pay back money that you're lent. And a low FICO score means that you cannot. A good FICO score to have is in the mid-700s if possible. It's very important to pay off your statement balance in full every month. Never pay off just the minimum balance. Another way to keep your FICO score up is to try and never lose your outstanding credit. Your outstanding credit is the amount the bank allows you to spend every month. For example, if you have a Chase Ink card with an outstanding credit line of $10,000 and you want to close the card, either change it to a free card or open a different Chase card and roll over the outstanding credit to the new card.
We covered some very important topics on dealing with your present situation. But how do you deal with creditors that we all have? Creditors that are patient and don't send you reminders that you will owe them money in the future. They will wait patiently, and many of you will ignore them. But on a due date, you'd better pay them or they'll make your life miserable. Dealing with these creditors is among the most important part of financial planning, and helping you prepare to deal with it is what I'm most passionate about in financial planning. I'm not referring to the usual creditors, mortgage payments, credit cards, loans, and so on. Those you are aware of. The creditors I'm talking about will be paid in the future, sometimes in a distant future, but we need to prepare now. So who are they? The sofer who will write your son's tefillin when he's 13. The caterer who will cater your children's bar or bat mitzvah and their weddings. The seller of the home you want to buy, but you'll need a down payment. And of course, yourself. How will you fund your retirement? Will you be able to maintain your lifestyle when the income from work stops? Social Security may be around in 30 or 40 years, but do you want to rely on that to be your only source of income? I have a client who is a successful businessman, and about 20 years ago, I encouraged him to save for his retirement. He was 27 years old at the time, and thankfully, he listened to me. He recently told me that when I mentioned retirement to him 20 years ago, he thought I was nuts. Why would a 27-year-old think about retirement? Now that he's 47, he sees the retirement on the horizon and truly appreciates my advice.
We discussed your budget earlier. So when you set your budget, there's one more necessary expense. Let's call it My Future Fund. It is an amount that you must save every month to meet your future expenses. We discussed before, you know that you have expenses that will come up in the future. How do you plan to pay for those expenses? We call it pay yourself first, because you save that money before you pay any other expenses. In my experience, if you pay other expenses first and try to save what's left, there's usually nothing left. However, when you pay yourself first, the other expenses somehow get paid. You do that by automatically transferring the amount you decide to save every month from your checking account to a savings account. Some people claim that they simply can't save any money. I persuaded a client who was convinced that he couldn't afford to save to automatically save $25 a month. A few months later, he told me that he wants to increase it to $50. He said that since he never had that money to spend, he did not miss it. He's now saving over $250 a month.
When I was 20 years old, a cup of coffee cost 25 cents and was simply called coffee. Recently, I spoke to a group of young people. They were around 20 years old, and I explained to them that saving just $5 a week, the cost of a cup of coffee, and that money is invested regularly, earning 6% a year, will grow to $60,000 by the time they're 65 years old. And the same savings of $5 a week, earning 8% a year, it could grow to $115,000. And that's just $5 a week. Another example, if you know that in 12 years you'll need to buy a pair of tefillin for $2,500, let's say, why not put aside $17 a month in an envelope? Or better yet, if you decide to invest the money and earn 6% return on it, you only need to put aside $12 a month. Similar planning can be applied to a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, weddings, and of course your future retirement needs. The sooner you start saving and investing the money, the less you'll need to save over time, since the money you save is compounded by the return of the investment. That is, you make money on your money. Successful financial planning is a lifetime effort. The plan is your financial roadmap. And when you get on the road, you don't simply get in your car and start driving. You usually know where you're going and plan the route you'll take. There may be bumps on the road, and you might need to take a different route, but you know the destination. And when you plan a long trip, you make sure there's enough gas to get where you're going. You don't want to get stuck on the highway without gas. In financial planning, life insurance is the gas or protection you need to help you accomplish your goals. And I'd be remiss if I didn't discuss the importance of having a life insurance. Unfortunately, I've been involved in helping families cope with the financial consequences of the death of a breadwinner. And when income stops coming in, as you can imagine, for those who had life insurance, the family can cope with the loss much better than those who don't.
The first thing you'll need to consider is when to get life insurance. The most important time to get life insurance is when you have a child or purchase a home. That's when there's a large financial loss that results from a death. Some people get life insurance as soon as they get married before having children. They do this just in case they, God forbid, get sick and won't be insurable by the time they have a child and need insurance. The next thing to consider is how much life insurance to get. When you're trying to determine how much life insurance to get, the simplest form of doing this is multiplying your income by 20. So if you make $50,000, then you need $1 million policy. But since nowadays term insurance policies are very affordable, we generally recommend at least $1 million of coverage for both the husband and the wife. Obviously, if you have higher income, you'll need to get a bigger policy. The last thing to consider is what kind of life insurance to get. Now, there are generally two types of life insurance policies that I wish to review. As the name implies, term life insurance is the most affordable because it offers protection for a specific number of years. It helps cover specific financial responsibilities like a mortgage or taking care of young children in the event of the death of the insured. For example, if you have young children who will need your support for the next 20 years until they become independent, you may purchase a 20-year term policy. At the end of the 20-year period, if the insured is alive, the policy will end. Think of it like car insurance. You only have it if you have the car. So once the financial obligation ends, so does the term policy. An example, when you choose a 20-year term policy, you'll pay the same premium every year for 20 years. You can buy term policies for 10, 15, 20, or even 30 years, depending on your specific needs. They are simple and easy to understand. To give you an example of how affordable term policies can be, a 25-year-old male can get a 20-year term policy for $1 million for around $40 to $70 a month. Of course, the better health you're in, the cheaper it'll be. Another policy there is whole life insurance. They are also called permanent life insurance policies. You generally buy them and plan to hold them for your entire life. They are complicated to understand and loaded with various riders and conditions. And because they include benefits other than life insurance, they are much more expensive than term insurance policies. For example, $1 million whole life policy for a 25-year-old male would be between $600 to $800 a month. As you can see, that's almost 10 times greater than the premium for a term policy for the same amount of coverage. Generally, whole life insurance policies could be advantageous for those who are financially secured and need permanent coverage and will benefit from the additional riders and that the policy provides. For example, if you have an estate or tax issue, a special needs child, and other such examples.
The most important point of this segment is to impress on you that life insurance is a necessity. For families with children, the breadwinner must have a life insurance policy. You should review your specific needs with a qualified financial planner. And since term insurance policies, as Dovid mentioned, are so affordable, we usually recommend at least $1 million coverage for the working spouse. It is also recommended that a non-working spouse who is taking care of young children should also have life insurance. I stress term life insurance over whole life because the amount of coverage is the most important. If you have a limited budget, current higher coverage trumps any other benefits offered by a whole life policy. But again, make sure you discuss your needs with a qualified financial planner. In conclusion, remember the dieting example I spoke about in the beginning. Those who have diet coaches or a nutritionist are usually more successful in reaching their goals than those who do it themselves. In two separate sports, basketball and golf, Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods were considered the greatest athletes in their respective sport. But they always had a coach to reach even greater levels. As a certified financial planner, I may be biased, but I believe that anyone can benefit from the advice of a financial planner who is really a financial coach in implementing your financial plan. Whether you'll need a one-time coaching session or ongoing meetings and monitoring is up to you. But since this is your financial future well-being, I think it's very important. Best wishes in your financial future.